This is an art collage novel video. I made this series so you guys can experience the story faster. The video will focus on the character's psychology, the images are for illustration purposes only. Not bad. Yi Fan nodded. This Noah's ship was made by me. Naturally, I will leave it to my descendants. The rest of you are greedy. You deserve to die. He seemed to be extremely disdainful of the countless experts who had died trying to get this boat over the past thousands of years. He continued, these 3 divine thoughts were originally for him to inherit all of my martial intent and essence, but I've consumed 2 divine thoughts to shatter the powerful earth rule, and half of my divine thoughts were consumed by the Prajna divine palm just now. Now, I'm only left with half of my divine thoughts. It's really vexing. As if asking for Yunxiao's opinion, he asked, should I let him partially merge with Noah's ship, or should I let him inherit part of my martial intent? No matter which one it is, it's far from enough. These 3 divine senses of mine have been dormant for thousands of years, but I didn't expect that only half of them could be used when they came out, and their power is much weaker than it was thousands of years ago. Yunxiao laughed in surprise. This is an important matter related to the inheritance of your temple of holy fire. Why are you asking me? He asked. As long as you know that Yi Fan is fine, you can think about it slowly, I won't be accompanying you any longer. Just as he was about to fly away, he suddenly thought of something and turned around to look at Yi Fan, opening his mouth to say something. Yi Fan smiled, interrupting, are you going to ask me about the God realm? For words no comment. Fuck. Yunxiao gave him the middle finger contemptuously, then flew away without looking back. Yi Fan stared at his back until he disappeared. Then, he turned to Tao Can and Qi Guang and said, this person has heavenly fate on him, so you must not become his enemy. After he finished speaking, he landed on a large tree branch and sat cross-legged in meditation. Tao Can and Qi Guang were shocked, they quickly agreed and stood beside Yi Fan, protecting him. The 2 of them looked at each other and saw the shock and disbelief in each other's eyes. The change in such a short time made them feel a little uncomfortable. It was too weird and unacceptable to say that Yi Fan was Yi Nantian. But that temperament and strength, if not so, there was no other explanation. And with their strength, what was the point of protecting them? If something really happened, they would just wait for Yi Fan to save them. Yunxiao shuttled through the luxuriant branches and leaves at a high speed. The true form of the ancient evergreen tree was comparable to the Kunwu divine tree, which was as huge as a forest. He followed the trail of little Qing's lightning. Sheng's goal was to collect the huge tree to nourish the armillary sphere, and his divine realm tablet could do the same. If it could absorb the infinite life force, its power would be infinite. The 3 martial sovereigns were either dead or injured. The only ones who could threaten him were Little Qing and the big demon. Little Qing owed him a favor, and he had fought with the big demon many times, so there was nothing to be afraid of. Yunxiao kept recalling the scene just now. Every move Yi Nantian made, as well as the Prajna palm, were gradually replayed in his mind. Suddenly, he smiled and said to himself, God realm? I'll reach it in the end. Boom boom boom. A huge tremor suddenly came from the front, and the whole forest began to shake. The leaves around them rustled, making one's ears ring. A huge black shadow stood up from the forest in the distance, roaring and erupting with astonishing power. The surrounding sky was filled with lightning and thunder. It was Little Qing's figure, and they were fighting. Yunxiao was stunned for a moment, and then a solemn look appeared on his face. He looked over and saw 2 silver horns on the huge figure's forehead, and its eyes were shining with a golden light. The 2 silver horns flashed with a powerful force that could directly break through Little Qing's lightning and hurt its body. The figure had a golden jade bracelet hanging on his left ear. It was Sheng's bracelet. At this moment, circles of light fell on the figure, as if the moonlight was washing it. The figure was illuminated with a bronze color. Is this Sheng's true form? Yunxiao was taken aback. Usually, demons were forced to reveal their true forms, because they would suffer a great loss of vitality and enter an extremely weak period after that. No one would reveal themselves unless they had no other choice. Now that Sheng's true form had appeared, it meant that he was going all out, and was making his last attempt. That must be the core of the eternal evergreen tree. Yunxiao swallowed a handful of medicinal pills and adjusted his condition to its peak, then flew away. Around Sheng's true form, Yu and the other three stood far away, their faces filled with anxiety. Only the ninth heaven Emperor Qi could suppress the lightning that Greenie had transformed into, and they could not help at all. The Sheng was one of the most ancient races in the demon race, the Hudo clan. They were born with silver horns and golden eyes. They had unparalleled demonic power that was no less powerful than the Emperor Qi. This is where Qing's true body is, Li said worriedly. He can absorb life force at any time. The longer we drag this out, the worse it'll be for Lord Sheng. You guys use the 3 talents formation to open up the core. I'll go and help Lord Sheng. She took out the battle drum and stepped on it, rushing into little Qing's lightning domain. Her body also began to turn demonic. 3 bone blades appeared on her slender arms, and her face gradually became demonic. Her long hair fluttered behind her back, and her feet moved according to a certain rhythm, tearing open a path. The sound of the drum was like a golden spear and iron horse, carrying boundless killing intent as it rolled over. It was as if they had entered an ancient battlefield, and everywhere was desolate. Qing was busy fighting with Sheng when suddenly, the power in its body began to stir restlessly, and its mood became agitated. Every beat of the drum was like a hammer hitting its heart, and due to a few moments of carelessness, it was almost suppressed by Sheng. A few golden beams shot out from Sheng's eyes and into the lightning, piercing through Qing's body. The 2 silver horns on his forehead glowed brightly, and 2 silver energy balls appeared in his hands. He took a big step forward and threw them towards Qing's lightning prison. He then shouted, "Li, get out. Collect the main body of the Tree of God." Qing Zhu was hit by the 2 silver light balls, and its whole body turned silver. It screamed in pain and retreated into the air. After gathering all the lightning, it stopped in the air. Its eyes were full of anger. It looked down and saw that Yu and the others were already setting up a formation to dig out its foundation. It rushed down in anger. Although he had already left his original body, he was still transformed from his original body. It was like watching his own placenta being eaten by someone. Who could bear it? Little Qing was almost going crazy. "Stay in the air!" Shang roared. His fists and horns glowed with a silver light. His hands formed a strange seal, and the golden light in his eyes shot into it. The gold and silver colors fused together, forming a Tai Chi pattern under the changes of his hand seals. As soon as the picture appeared, a strange power radiated out, freezing the surrounding space. Even Sheng himself could not move. Little Qing's lightning body also appeared, but it was stopped by the golden power. Every movement it made was extremely difficult. It said in shock, the innate divine power of the Calamity Tower raised the Taiji Heaven Seal. "Just stay here and enjoy the scenery with me," said Shang, his face twisted. "I'll let you go after my subordinates have taken your body." Qing Zhu was furious. It desperately gathered energy and said coldly, "Are you really going to force me to form the Zifu apocalyptic sacred lightning? Your armillary sphere is already broken. Do you think that this level of sky-sealing seal can suppress the power of the world?" Shang's heart twitched. The destruction of the armillary sphere and the death of Yao Ji were all thanks to little Qing. Now that it was mentioned, it aroused his monstrous anger and he shouted, "Why don't you try to form your divine lightning? At most, you can kill one of my people under my heaven-sealing seal. Do you think you can escape with your human form?" Qing's face darkened. He knew that Shang was telling the truth. The Taiji sky-sealing seal was an innate ability that could only be inherited by the bloodline of the Hudo clan's king. It was known as the strongest seal in the realm of heavenly martial arts. If not for the fact that Shang was too weak, his purple lightning would not have been able to break through it. Furthermore, once the purple lightning was formed, it would definitely die if its power was exhausted. The two of them faced each other in the air. A golden and silver Tai Chi pattern seemed to form a world of its own. It flowed around them like a river of stars, splitting the sky into 2. The Tai Chi pattern was faintly discernible in it. Below, the 3 of them formed the 3 talents formation. The three ninth-tier profound armaments formed a triangular pattern, 2 by 2, crossing each other and radiating golden light in all directions. Although it was simple, it was able to gather all the power on one point. Boom, boom, boom. The point where the power of the three profound level weapons had gathered suddenly exploded. A round golden energy ball formed in the air and continued to expand. In the energy ball, a huge tree that reached the sky was reflected, full of spiritual energy. This is the place. Yu shouted in a deep voice. He used his left hand to perform a few hand seals, and runes swam down from the tail-light sword and shot into the ball of light. At this moment, the energy ball suddenly exploded. There was not much energy fluctuation, but a black space appeared, as if some seal had been broken. The two spaces connected at this moment, and there was a slight collision. Hundreds and thousands of black cracks appeared with a crack. Main body space. Yu was overjoyed, his face filled with excitement. Qingzhu watched all of this from above, and its face was so gloomy that it was about to drip water. At the core of the eternal evergreen tree, all of its life essence was condensed, and a mini divine tree slowly emerged from the strange space. Quickly seal the core of the tree of God, don't let it fall. Once the tree core lands on the ground, its power will be lost from the earth. Sheng roared. It's impossible to collect it all. Sweat began to pour down his forehead like rain. He was already an arrow at the end of its flight. The Taiji heaven sealing print was also in a trance and showed signs of disappearing at any moment. The three great demons hurriedly formed hand seals and immediately set up a barrier together. They sealed the space that had appeared, making it difficult for the core of the tree of God to escape. Yuan Sun, who had been watching from a distance, suddenly revealed a cold expression. He suddenly attacked Tang Jia, who was not far away, and the power of his martial honor domain rolled over. After a long period of rest and recuperation, his strength had long since fully recovered, and he had been waiting for an opportunity to make a move. What are you doing? Tang Jia was shocked and instantly took out his vermilion bird saber to block in front of him. The sharpness of the blade broke the domain, and at the same time, his body shrank, both offensive and defensive. However, Yuan Sun was a top-tier assassin, and every time he made a move, it would be like a thunderbolt. His figure flickered, and he completely disappeared, concealing himself in the air. Tang Jia's face turned pale with fright as he brandished his vermilion bird saber, sending out a series of saber rays that formed a line around his body to guard against Yuan Sun's sneak attack. Hey, it's no use. Yuan Sun's sneer came from behind him. Tang Jia turned around in shock and slashed out with his saber. However, he felt a finger on his joint and his entire arm went numb on the spot. The vermilion bird saber fell from his hand. To be able to obtain a 9th-tier profound armament, this trip wasn't in vain. The lost profound chi can also be considered as getting quite a big return. Tang Jia's eyes blurred in shock. He could only see a few afterimages in the air before Yuan Sun fled with his vermilion bird saber. The whole process only took a few breaths, and he couldn't even see the other party's movements before he threw away his treasured saber. Death God Palace was indeed worthy of being the #1 assassin organization in the world. Tang Jia's face turned pale in an instant. Losing the vermilion bird saber was undoubtedly a huge blow to his strength. At this moment, the three great demons were sealing the core space of the Tree of God and did not have the time to bother with him. In the distance, Yuan Sun's figure quickly turned into a small dot and was about to disappear from his sight. However, to Tang Jia's surprise, not only did the small dot not disappear, it became larger and larger. What's going on? He's back? Tang Jia was stunned as he saw Yuan Sun's body uncontrollably fly in the air. His eyes were filled with fear and anger as he fell to the ground with heavy injuries. A figure with an ice-cold expression appeared. He held the vermilion bird saber in his hand and walked over step by step. There was nothing under his right shoulder. Fei! Tang Jia cried out in horror. He looked at the place where his arm was cut off and couldn't figure out who else could cut off his arm. Fei ignored Yuan Sun, who was on the ground, and stared coldly at the three of them. He walked over in a few flashes and said coldly, "How can I return empty-handed after entering the treasure mountain? Even if I can't get Noah's ship, it's still good to get a few 9th-tier profound armaments." With a flash of light, the vermilion bird saber was put away. He looked greedily at the 3's 9th-tier armaments, which were glowing in the air. Under everyone's shock, he rose into the air and turned into a ray of light as he rushed towards the 3 9th-tier profound armaments. He stretched out his hand and grabbed them. "What do you want to do?" Yu's eyes were filled with ferocity as he glared at Fanny. A wave of mind power rippled from his body, and he disappeared from the spot. He teleported in front of Fanny and punched it. The 3 of them only had the strength of a martial arts grandmaster. They had completely relied on the power of a profound level weapon to seal the core space of the Tree of God. If the core of the Tree of God was taken away, it would definitely break the seal and break out. At that time, all their efforts would be in vain. "You want to stop me with your ant-like strength?" Fanny laughed contemptuously as he condensed Emperor Qi in his palm and struck out. The overbearing power directly shook Shatteraine's fist force and hit his body, sending him flying. Although he was injured, he was not someone could fight against. If it wasn't for Yu's strong physical body, he would have been turned into ashes by this palm. Even so, his body was still heavily injured, and he fell to the ground far away, vomiting blood. Li flew down from the sky, his 5 fingers beating on the war drum repeatedly. Sound waves broke through the air and shot down towards the thief. At this moment, her demonic form was getting stronger and stronger, and her body size had already increased by several times. With a flick of her finger, she also had great power. Fanny frowned. The 5 elements beast taming ring flew out of his hand and formed a big circle in the air. The 5 rat kings ran around the big circle, and the power of the 5 elements spread out, forming a defense to block the sound wave. Li's expression changed. The drum suddenly expanded infinitely, as huge as a mountain, and pressed down ruthlessly. Instantly, the sun and moon lost their light. At this critical moment, she couldn't care about anything else. Even if she had to risk her life and destroy all her profound level weapons, she had to ensure that she could obtain the core power of the ancient evergreen tree. Feng Yi was finally moved. The 9 Li war drum's profound level weapons power pressed down on his 5 elements beast taming ring. The 5 rat kings began to show pain on their faces, and their running speed gradually slowed down. His 5 elements beast taming ring was only a quasi-9th-tier profound artifact. If he were to forcefully collide with it, he was afraid it would be completely damaged. Feng Yi clenched his fist, and the beast taming bracelet shrank rapidly, turning into a bracelet and falling into his left wrist. Then, he clenched his 5 fingers and clenched his palm into a fist. A stream of energy spread out from the tip of his fist in a circular shape like a water wave. He gathered all his power and blasted it towards the big drum that was pressing down. The might of the Emperor Qi of the 9 heavens was unparalleled. Boom boom boom. The Jiuli war drum gave out a huge vibration. The muffled sound waves suddenly spread in an irregular frequency, one long and one short. It pierced everyone's eardrums and caused them to bleed. Their ears were temporarily deafened. The space was also distorted by the powerful sound waves. Feng Yi was under the war drum and was the closest to it, so it suffered the strongest backlash from the sound wave. He spat out a mouthful of blood on the spot, and his injuries worsened. He gradually felt that he could not hold on. Fortunately, Li had used up a lot of his strength when he was fighting little Qing. She was also at the end of his rope when controlling the 9 Li war drum. She was sent flying by the backlash of the Emperor Qi penetrating the drum. Although she was only in human form, she was still sent flying by the punch and fell to the ground like rain. The mountain-like war drum also lost her control and quickly became smaller. Feng Yi panicked and reached out to grab the war drum, but he was still a step too late. The war drum seemed to be extremely spiritual. After losing control, it instantly turned into a ray of light and returned to Li's waist. Li's body was injured and she gradually returned to his human form. However, her body was pale and he had lost all his vital qi. She had no strength left. I'll take you in later. Feng Yi snorted coldly. He was not afraid of running away from a cooked duck, so he directly grabbed the 3 profound-level weapons in the 3 talents formation. That war drum was a soundwave profound-level weapon after all, so it was not as attractive to him as these 3 real weapons. Whoosh! The taillight swords on the 3 talents formation had lost control of the rain for a long time. Finally, they flew out of the formation and automatically rushed toward the rain. Kill! Wing roared, his eyes bursting with endless killing intent. Fu, hold on for a few breaths. I'll kill this person first. His 10 fingers moved, and the finger sword flew back. His 10 fingers exuded a strong killing intent. He couldn't care much about the follow-up. All the power was gathered in the profound level weapon and exploded in an instant. The space was directly torn apart, and countless random slashes appeared, flying towards the sky. Feng Yi was shocked. He knew that each of these great demons had their own strangeness. Their cultivation was trash, but their combat strength was super strong. He clenched his left fist and the 5 elements beast taming ring came out of his body. A 5-colored enchantment enveloped him, blocking the overwhelming space cracks and constantly tearing the surrounding space. The enchantment was also being torn by the spiritual pressure, and it was about to break at any time. The moment Wing made his move, Fu was the only one left to support the seal. He poured all his power into the clamoring axe, trying to suppress the core space. However, he felt immense pressure. Waves of fluctuations came from the battle axe, indicating that the seal was about to break. There's actually someone in this space. Fu was shocked. He felt an overbearing force rush out of the core space. No matter how hard he tried, he couldn't withstand it. His battle axe was sent flying. He was also affected by the powerful force and was sent flying dozens of meters away, spitting out blood. I'm finally out. After the seal was broken, a loud laugh was heard, followed by a figure flying out. Although he was in a sorry state, his face was full of joy after surviving a disaster. As he rushed out, an extremely powerful fist wind followed, breaking through the layers of air and making a powerful explosion sound, trying to kill him. The man turned around, and the broad sword in his hand, which was as wide as a washboard, casually slashed down. The sword chi struck the fist force, and a huge energy exploded and spread. Even Wing and Feng Yi felt the fluctuation, and they were both sent flying more than 10 meters away. The peak of martial honor. Feng Yi was shocked as he looked at the man standing in the air. He immediately recognized him as the leader of the Storm mercenary group in the Qinga forest, Chen Chuanjiu. Now that he was seriously injured, even the power of a peak martial venerable would not be able to resist it. Therefore, he was wary and stood in the air, not daring to move. In the sky, Sheng's expression changed. His eyes flickered with golden light and his huge body trembled. Qingzhu was still looking down coldly, without any emotion. After Chen Chuanjiu struck out with his sword, he immediately laughed and said, Young Emperor Hao Lian, although I can't kill you today, I'll stop you from condensing your rules and gathering your emperor qi. If you fail this time, then your inner demons will be born, and it will be as difficult as ascending to the heavens for you to advance in the future. Feng Yi's heart twitched and he was extremely shocked. Young Emperor Hao Lian was actually condensing emperor qi in this core space. However, it seemed like he was interrupted by Chen Chuanjiu. That's good, otherwise, even if I meet him, I'll have to suppress him. It's better to have one less person in the 9 heavens realm than one more. There was no sound coming from the space, only the darkness gradually spread out. The 2 spaces completely fused together, and a mini sapling of the tree of God appeared and fell to the ground. The great demon's eyes were filled with unwillingness and resentment. However, other than Wing, all of them were seriously injured. They did not have the energy to seal the seal. The sapling landed on the ground and immediately took root. The surrounding lush branches and leaves suddenly became full of spiritual energy, as if the entire forest had been renewed. The sapling was also growing at a terrifying speed that could be seen with the naked eye, constantly growing stronger. Everyone felt a refreshing feeling in their hearts, and every breath they took brought great benefits. All kinds of injuries and power losses were gradually recovered at this moment. At this moment, a burly figure appeared beside the tree of God. He ignored everything in front of him and sat down in the air. He formed a vajra seal with his hands, forming a defensive barrier around him, and then entered a meditative state.